Okay, pledge of allegiance, Robert.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, amen. Sip. Okay. Today's special meeting, Township Clerk interview process. And Ms. Smeltzer is here for our 4 o'clock. Jennifer, know everybody, or everyone, I think you know everybody, but does everybody in the audience know Jennifer? No? Dave? Dan.
Dan, I'm Jennifer Smeltzer.
Okay. Who wants to start? Jennifer, welcome. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for actually applying, so go ahead.
Jennifer,
Yes.
discuss your familiarity with experience on the following financial.
Hang on. We have a public comment.
I'm sorry, public comment, Dan, go ahead.
Are we gonna be able to ask the candidates a question or two?
I would think it'd be, I don't know,
It's our interview, I mean,
ask me and then we will ask. How's that? That's
Well, the
fine.
question I'd like to hear the thoughts of each candidate on would be their thoughts on the relationship between government transparency and government accountability.
Okay. Aren't those the same?
No.
Well,
Okay.
the candidates answer.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. Did you write that down?
Sorry.
Sorry, I just interjected my 2 cents, but I always thought those were the same, but maybe I'd be wrong. Okay, who wants to start?
Try it again.
Go ahead, Bob.
Is there anybody else that has public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy.
nobody online.
Okay.
There's nobody online at all, is there? Okay.
How do you see the clerks? The township clerk role in relationship to the rest of the township board?
Bob, can I stop you for a minute?
Certainly.
You're not gonna go down 1 to 11, we're gonna get lost otherwise.
9.
Okay. Wow.
Circle it.
So the question is how do I see the relationship of the township clerk with the rest of the board?
Yes.
I think it's imperative that, as a voting member of the board, that you work collaboratively with all the other members of the board, including the deputies. I mean, not only your deputy clerk, but the deputy township treasurer.
Great. Thanks, you want me to continue?
Or I can ask a question.
There might be some follow-ups. I have a follow-up, I guess, on that. So, there's been conflict in the past over the years, not just this township, but other townships between people maybe not having a clear understanding of what their roles are from a statutory and from a practical standpoint and from how those need to overlap perhaps. I don't want to call it turf wars, but that's, for lack of a better word, that happens from time to time. And it's pretty common in townships because of the way township governments are set up. How would you navigate if some of those issues ever came up?
So obviously, the clerk's role is to adhere to the statutory responsibilities and duties of the clerk. But in a lot of townships, particularly smaller townships, they're asked to do additional things. And I think those can be easily worked out, with discussion and faith, et cetera. I'm not sure quite what you're getting at. Do you have a
Well,
specific example?
I mean, sometimes statutory duties, the person in a particular role doesn't have the necessary expertise to do those. But yet sometimes they're unwilling to ask for help. And at that point, it becomes the township board's role to make sure that those statutory duties are getting done. So for example, if somebody doesn't have any general ledger accounting experience, that's the big role of the clerk.
Mhm.
And it's not getting done or it's not being done adequately. Those types of conflicts have to be worked out to figure out what that is gonna look like, because it's still a statutory responsibility, but you can have third parties do that, or you can have other individuals do that with your oversight, with the clerk's oversight. And there's, the statutory list of duties for clerks is long and extensive.
Mhm.
Sometimes there isn't all that same level of expertise in all those areas on one individual person.
Right, so, I think the answer to that is also gonna mimic what's the Michigan Township Association talking about. Who can do what in different roles? And it's the board's entire responsibility to make sure that the jobs are getting done. And so, I mean, I wouldn't have any hesitancy if I didn't understand how, oh, this payroll's not working out right. How do I do that? I don't have a problem asking the treasurer or the deputy treasurer, hey, are you familiar with this? Can you help me with that? That kind of a thing.
Okay.
But everybody on the board has a responsibility to make sure everything gets done, even if it's not specifically in your silo of responsibilities.
Thank you for that.
Two things. So, you've reviewed the statutory duties, I've got to believe, pretty thoroughly, correct? We pile extra stuff onto the, which you may or may not know, onto the clerk that I think aren't part of the statutory duties, but over the years has become part of the clerk's job, such as this, and that is one reason the salary's been increased. Election being one of them, we added extra money, what was it, 2 years ago?
Because of the new law that.
New law that went into effect and whatever, and what I'm asking you is, you've already researched all this, so you're well aware what the job is gonna be, correct?
Right.
Okay. Just wanna make sure, because I think it's more than a lot of people think at first, right? I know, but you've done other stuff, so I'm not concerned that you can't do it, just that you're aware of it, that's all.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay.
And I did notice I reviewed some of the minutes and there was a question, in public comment about paying your clerk separately for statutory duties versus extra duties, et cetera. And I would say,
We voted that out.
I think, yeah, that's what I recall, but you would also want to be careful what you wish for in that. In Leelanau County, they removed some of the financial housekeeping stuff from the county clerk and moved it over to a finance department. And the finance department individual that was put in that place wasn't up to speed and fully comfortable, and so then they now have to pay the county clerk and the staff a stipend,
Try to fix it,
everything
yeah.
they do by the hour. And it's cost Leelanau County
Bottom line.
$750,000 and $1 million.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that. Part of the minute taking now, who's been doing minutes? You have, or Cindy's been doing?
I've been doing the agenda, she's been doing.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, that's right. That should probably go back to the clerk, I would think, right? That was the clerk's job
It's
before.
a clerk.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make.
We're just trying to.
Make do now, so okay.
Right.
And just so you know, I lean on the clerk a lot because the clerk, I have to work closely, obviously, the clerk does a lot of stuff for the supervisors, part of the thing, and that's just, I think, an inherent. But to separate the duties out, no, I think whoever gets the job, that's the job is the job, but you might as well answer Dan's question because about,
So transparency and accountability, I think really go hand in hand. As somebody who's a steward of the taxpayers' money, you have to be, I mean, that's what your accountability is. I realize this is filling a vacancy and it's a very long vacancy at this point, but at the end of the day, you're an elected official, so you are ultimately accountable to the taxpayers for that. And I guess I'd like a little bit of clarification on how you're defining transparency and accountability.
Dictionary definition.
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Something good?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jennifer, please walk us through your resume, highlighting your relevant experiences and credentials. We've obviously all reviewed them, but if you want to just kind of give us the Cliff Notes overview.
Sure. So most of my background has been working with elections, either as a campaign manager, campaign staffer, et cetera, et cetera. Also worked in the Michigan House of Representatives as legislative director. In the state house, representatives have 2 staff people. Legislative director is also the chief of staff, but you're only the chief of staff with 1 person. So the joke is you're a chief of staff. So,
Okay.
but then I also worked as legislative director and then temporary chief of staff in the Michigan Senate. So I am familiar with having to put out agendas, with time requirements when things need to be posted. There is a full-time clerk staff for each committee, but still that legislator says, this is what goes on the agenda. We provide all that information, what bills are being taken up, et cetera. They are responsible for all the posting, and that kind of thing. Additionally, I've been involved in a lot of different community organizations, including my current position as president of the Wexford County Airport Authority. So I'm required to do the agenda, help with the minutes when necessary, et cetera, and do all the postings and be mindful of the Open Meetings Act, when those things have to be posted, the timelines, et cetera.
Any follow-ups? So you did not run for the township clerk position at the last election, but now you're applying. What motivated you to apply for the position, and can you elaborate on why you didn't run in November?
Sure. So let me answer that last half first. In order for me to have been on the ballot in November, I would have had to present myself as a primary challenge candidate to the then clerk. The previous board unanimously voted for her to fill that position. And I thought, do I really need to create a primary situation? Knowing through conversations that she was, if she were not appointed, she was unwilling to help whoever was appointed. I have to conclude from that, had I beaten her in the primary, she would have been unwilling to help the next clerk be successful. Wouldn't be on the ballot in November unless I decided to run as a write-in as the Democrat nominee, because that position was vacant. Then I could have appeared on the ballot as a Democrat. However, as a lifelong Republican, that's not something I would ever do. Not comfortable with that.
What do you think are the top 3 to 5 issues facing the township, and what is your overall perception of the township?
So my overall perception of the township is that this has been a fantastic place to live, work, and raise a family. I'm originally from Oakland County, but when you marry a farmer, you move to the farm. So over the course of 34, 35 years living up here, I just think this, I can't imagine raising my children downstate, in all honesty. I like the fact that it's a small community, that the schools are smaller. I think there's a lot more participation. There's a lot more opportunity for children who, in a bigger school system, you're not going to be on the basketball team, you're not going to be in the play, whatever. In a small community, there's a place for everyone to be here. My overall perception of Onekama Township is that we have a very nice balance between, how will I describe it? Sports and recreation and people who enjoy the outdoor life with the lake, but we also have a lot of agriculture, not only in the township, but in the surrounding area. We have a nice balance of that. We have a small business community here that I think can continue to grow and thrive. I think it's difficult sometimes in a smaller town. You have to make all of your hay while the sun shines because the winter months are long. But overall, I think this is a fantastic place to live. I would not, over the years, I've heard people who've moved up here from other places, whether it's Ann Arbor or Grand Haven or some other state, say, hey, Onekama should be more like Saugatuck, or Onekama needs to be more like this. Onekama needs to be what Onekama is, and for it to develop and grow organically. We don't need to mimic Saugatuck. We don't need to mimic any other community. We need to be ourselves.
What do you think are the top 3 to 5 issues facing the township?
Some of these issues I think are going to be perennial issues. I think certainly the health and vitality of the lake, because it's a key feature of the township. And not only for folks who want to swim and kayak and do water sports and things like that, but also the health of the aquatic life for the fishermen, the ice fishing, et cetera, things like that. I think that's has been and will always be one of the top issues for the township. I think things like road ends and that kind of thing, who has access to it, doesn't have access to it. Oh, your dock is in the road end. Well, why can't my dock be in the road end? Well, it's a public road end, et cetera. I think that's always going to be an issue. And then I think, how does Onekama, how does the township board as a whole best be of service to folks who want to do business here.
No, but I'm gonna ask her a different question to get off your list for a minute. So as we had to deal last time with the deputy, and we cannot tell you who to appoint as your deputy. If you were appointed to the job, you get to pick your own deputy. The board just approves it.
Mhm.
We would urge whoever we appoint to keep Mandy on as the deputy, because someone's gonna need to, she's very good and someone needs to train, obviously,
Sure.
because it'll be a learning process. Is there any aversion that you might have towards keeping her on as your deputy?
No.
Okay. I think it'd be very important in the learning curve anyways. It's just something we should talk about, so. Okay,
Well, but at the same time, I mean.
It's her
there has to be
choice.
Clear understanding that it's the clerk's.
Sure.
decision. Just, I just don't want.
no, that's why I said it's her.
Implication.
You know, I think if I were to be appointed, clearly I would want to work with Mandy. And we'll see how that relationship goes. If we're a good fit for each other, then she's gonna want to stay and I'm gonna want to keep her. If we're not a good fit for each other, I should do us both a favor, find somebody different. If she doesn't want to work with me or I don't care to work with her, then we make a different decision at that point.
Okay,
Jennifer, what strengths do you have that you think would be beneficial to your success as a township clerk? And how would those strengths apply to the duties, statutory duties and responsibilities of the position?
So again, I think through not only my background in the state legislature, but being involved with different community groups and sitting on different boards, that understanding of how the process works, understanding the function of agendas and minutes and keeping track of all of that stuff, keeping track of records, et cetera. You know, go to that, my understanding of laws and writing. And some townships, I think the clerk does the verbiage for some of the motions, and in others, I think supervisor or somebody else hands them the verbiage that they want, but understanding how motions are made, how verbiage should be, unintended consequences. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, and it might be more than one revision ago, there was a master plan for the township. And in that master plan, it was stated that you had to come and get permission before cutting down any trees on your property. Just like that. The unintended consequence of that is if I need to remove an orchard, or you need to remove something, I have to come get permission from the township to run my business the way that I see fit, because I think this block of apple trees should be cut down and replaced with something else. No. So I think having an ability to look and see, I see where somebody wants this. What are the unintended consequences? What does this really look like 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road? I think that's, you know, pretty important to look at.
You talked a little bit about the election, but can you describe your familiarity with election laws and procedures? It looks like we're probably gonna have two elections this year, unfortunately, one in May and one in November. And there was single issue elections, right? ISD and who's the other one, the college or?
college.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so, you know, they talked about doing election reform at one point and consolidating elections. That doesn't happen, but you're gonna be thrust into that pretty quickly. So how would you kind of navigate that, having not run an election before?
So, I think first of all, there's training available at the state. And certainly, I have no doubt that the county clerk would be willing to help me walk through things. And I do have some familiarity. I was chairman of the Board of Canvassers. So I'm used to looking at poll books, working with poll books, et cetera. But I would certainly call in backup if there was any question on how to more effectively run that election, or if I had any questions on it.
Fortunately, these two don't require early voting, so.
Oh, and it's just day of?
Yeah, because it's not a state.
Oh, okay, cool.
State issue, so.
Well, that's better.
Can you discuss your familiarity, and again, this is relating to one of the statutory duties of the clerk, but your familiarity and experience with the following financial and bookkeeping areas: accounts payable, payroll, and general ledger maintenance?
Right, so over the course of working, I've had a little bit of experience with that here and there. I've had to do payroll in some of my previous jobs, I had to approve payroll, et cetera. Working with budgets on the various boards, you have to understand how the money comes in, how it goes out, how things have to be categorized for the generally accepted governmental accounting procedures and that kind of thing, how those are recorded. And then I know there was a question on there about BSNA.
Well, it's not, but that's the software that we use.
Right, the
Yeah.
software. And so I did that's typically something that municipalities use. So I spent some time online, looked up the company, pleased to find out they're a Michigan-based company, looked at some of the information they had. They had a couple of YouTube videos that were like tutorials, but they were different parts of what they offer. So this past Saturday, I spent 2.5 hours with the Springfield Township clerk. While she walked through her bill paying, her EFTs. I had an opportunity to look through the manual that BSNA provided, plus she had added some other pages and things like that, and walked me through how all these processes are, how they go. My overall impression of the BSNA software is that, first of all, that the company seems to want to bend over backward to help you. Even in the manual, it's like, if you have a problem here, call us. Please don't solve this yourself, call us, we'll help you. Their promotional stuff on their website is all about how customer focused they are. That's been that clerk's experiences, that they've been very, very helpful walking her through some things. And so I feel comfortable with it. There's a lot of fail safes as you go, even on each screen. Did you do this? Did you put this in? Nope, you didn't click that. You gotta go back there and do that. So I feel that while there would be a learning curve, that it's something that's manageable. And any of my other sort of finance, budgeting sort of stuff has all been either with QuickBooks or with, some groups like to use an Excel spreadsheet to manage all their
works.
finances.
It works
So-
if they're small enough.
Bob, when you took over, what training did you, when we first appointed you, I know you did online training. How many hours was that? That
First for election stuff, right?
Yeah,
40 some for election, plus another 20. I think that was the majority of it right there.
so, okay. And you learned a lot, but you still didn't, Mandy,
Oh, election off, something happened.
yeah, I know. I'm amazed actually to this day. No, no, I think we had great help here. How's that?
We did, good help, good advice.
Mandy and the other gal.
Yeah,
It's just amazing you didn't apply.
yeah.
But there'll always be help. That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
okay. And we use BSNA for the assessing.
Maple
So,
came on this too. She did a good job.
They're very helpful for calling and calling right back. If you don't reach them immediately, they will. They're one of the few companies that will keep trying you back and they'll fix our issues. We have a little issue with the cloud right now, but
It's very similar to government deal, so very similar.
okay.
So Jennifer, can you talk a little bit, and you did mention this, but maybe dive in a little bit more about your experience with, you know, the Open Meetings Act and how that's applied, and also FOIA processes?
Sure, so I am familiar with what the FOIA process is. When you receive something, if it's electronic, if it's an electronic FOIA request, it's technically you've received it the minute you've opened up the request, and if it's mail, it's technically the day you actually have it in your hand. As to when the clock starts ticking, I have not had to fulfill a FOIA request, but I did download the manual, and it's all really self-explanatory, and you do this and you do this, and et cetera. And then as far as the Open Meetings Act, I've also reviewed that booklet that the Secretary of State puts out on that. Who's required, what's required, what the timelines are, what isn't covered under Open Meetings Act, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel pretty comfortable with those.
So right now, two previous clerks didn't want to do the FOIA stuff, so Dave is the FOIA coordinator, but I think he would like to probably hand that back to the new clerk, would you not, at some point?
Yeah, or until they,
Back to the old clerk.
yeah, I hand it back to the old
Our
clerk.
current
now.
clerk.
Well, essentially, so I'm the FOIA director, I get the request, but I have to search out the material. I have to have the clerk search out the material because they're the keeper of the records 90% of the time, or it's zoning, or it's the zoning administrator. So for me, it would make more sense in the prior years, the clerk was the FOIA director, only because they had to go get the information anyways. And right now it has to come to me, and then I say, okay, Bob or Mandy or somebody, could you please look this up and try to find this? It would just eliminate one step. But I could stay on for a while till whoever the new clerk was felt comfortable with that and just work with them together. It doesn't matter. So
What would you say your FOIA request load is?
More than you'd think.
more than you,
Five in the last 2 weeks.
it's been easy stuff.
Some of it.
Some of it not. Some of it doesn't exist, so. I mean, there is FOIA requests that we get that, you've done FOIA requests before, or no, you have not?
No, I'm just familiar. with what
Okay.
they have to comply with.
As an example, I want a survey of the township in its entirety with a legal description, okay? I was asked for that. We don't have that. I mean, we have the roll book, we have what the county has, is all the properties in Onekama Township, we have all that. I don't have that. You don't have to produce it. The FOIA request is, could you give me a copy of what you have? Not, could you go produce this document for me? So that's the one thing you gotta understand as a FOIA director, you can't make stuff up for the person, you can only give them what is a record,
actually have.
yes.
Okay.
And that's really important, because you shouldn't try to delve into, oh, maybe this should be this, no. Just give them stuff, and if you don't have it, you don't have it.
Without hurting anybody's feelings, attorneys are great at give me all the information you have about X. You know how much information that is?
So that you have to,
300 pages worth of.
you have to have someone do a defined FOA request, because it can't be that broad. Otherwise, you gotta call them back and say it's gonna be thousands of dollars, so we can look it up.
That's one thing I think we need to do a better job of, is making sure that these people pay for their FOIA requests. Like that, rather than just kind of being nice and giving it to them, because
Yeah.
that is letting them know that there's a cost to your requests, and sometimes I consider the request to be, you know, from my opinion, probably not from their standpoint, somewhat frivolous when, because there's sometimes when people call me for, I don't make people FOIA every bit of information, give them the information. So some people feel like they have to go through this FOIA process, where if it's a simple thing, it could just be picking up the phone call or sending an email. So there's this fine line, but I do think we need to make sure if we have a policy to charge people, then we charge them. They don't get it till they pay
And
it.
it's just the lowest rate of somebody on staff, your lowest rate, you can't charge like let's say you were making more money than that, you can only charge, we have been charging the last.
I haven't gotten any money for any FOIA requests recently.
Oh, I
Have we
paid.
done some?
$20.
Well, you did, but there's been some that I know we've sent out that we did.
Well, here, and I tell you what we are trying to do is post most everything now, we're doing a better job
Yeah,
posting
which is
online.
great.
So if you look for it, you go there first, and then generally we can at least refer people and say, hey, you just gotta go to the website, it's right there, you don't have to FOIA it, it's right out there.
Right.
So I think we're doing a better job of that, which
We
should,
might want to the new clerk may want to review the process with the board to make sure we're all on the same page on how that's gonna work, but.
okay.
Jennifer, describe your familiarity and experience with preparing agendas, taking minutes, and record keeping, including document imaging. I know you talked about that briefly, but you can dive into that a little bit.
Wow, so I have quite a bit of experience
Yeah.
with record keeping and document keeping and uploading things to various software systems so that whatever document can be found by whoever is appropriate to have access to that information. Years and years of it.
Okay.
Keeping track of all of that, not only from the standpoint of having been an employee, but also working on different campaigns. There's stuff you definitely have to keep track of. Because the Secretary of State's gonna wanna see it, and they're gonna want proof of it.
One of the technology tools that the township has is a product called Laserfish.
Mhm.
Very powerful. I worked with it for 15 years. It hasn't been implemented here as effectively as it might possibly have been. So one of my goals is to work with whoever the new clerk is to revamp that entire system and get some better policies and procedures in place so that it actually becomes a tool that is effective and usable and helps with FOIA requests and makes it super easy for me to look up a contract if I need to see something, if I have a question, rather than having to always go to the clerk. So it actually it's effort up front, but it takes time off the clerk's plate down the road and it's for more transparency, frankly. So that would be a project I'm very interested in working with whoever the new clerk is, but it's super powerful software and we're just not utilizing it to its fullest extent right now.
Do we currently have that or?
Oh.
Well, as somebody who was trained with microfiche, I'll be happy to see that.
It's probably similar, isn't it?
Laserfiche,
It's way better.
so.
It's way better, but it's,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's.
really awful.
What would your top three priorities be if you were appointed to the township clerk position?
So top three priorities as the township clerk. I think, first of all, a majority of people believe that the clerk's entire job revolves around elections. Even though in non-election years and every time there is an election, you're doing all these other things like you're talking about. Paying the bills and et cetera, et cetera. So I think my first priority would be to reassure the voting public that your records and your vote is secure and safe. That's number one, because that's frankly what most people think the clerk does. Most people think the clerk does elections and takes the minutes at the board meeting. And they don't know all this other stuff that the clerk does. So my next priority, if I were to be appointed, my immediate priority would be to start to get up to speed on the BSNA software, do some of that training. The township and the clerks associations both have training that you can go to. So I would be interested in seeing where I would fall into that to be up to speed on all of those things. So those would be really my first two priorities, would be reassuring the electorate that your vote is secure and safe in our township, and then getting up to speed on all the other things that the clerk needs to do.
I've got one question that I think got lost with the other. I know that Ed posed the question about the reasons for you not running for it, and I think he did. I mean, I understand that. But part of the question too is, so what is motivating you to apply for it now?
Right, so, well, let me back up a little bit. The other half of that original answer was also the fact that as a campaign consultant, I had already signed 10 candidates for that election cycle, from Lenawee County up all the way through Leelanau County. I could not have run for the position and done the job that I needed to do on my race and still honor the commitments I had made to all these other candidates, and their races are equally as important to them. And I'm very pleased to say we were successful in 8 of them, 8 of those races that we did. So that's one of the reasons I didn't run. I was initially interested in the position when the vacancy came up. But then seeing that the board went in a different direction, decided, okay, sometimes your answer is your answer and you have to be willing to say, all right, not for me, not then, not, the answer was no, not now. Okay, I can deal with that. That's a business decision. But my reason for applying now is, I do think I would make an excellent, clerk. I do think I have the skills and the background and the understanding, and not only the understanding, but the ability to learn the job and learn the things that I don't already know about it. So that's why I'm applying now.
All right, last question, unless there's follow-ups. What questions do you have for us here at the township? Actually, there's 2 more questions. That's the second and the last one.
Sure. One of the questions I have, for the board is, how do you see working with the clerk? What are you looking for from that relationship? Not only from the duties as a clerk, but also your voting, the clerk is a voting member of the board. So what is it that the township is looking for specifically in that relationship?
I think you want, from a township board involvement, you want someone that's gonna be involved, which I know you would be, in local issues and get to the answer, not just be a yes vote or no vote and not know what's going on. So I think you'd be an integral part of the board and its decision making. It's basically the 4 board members. My vote doesn't count unless there's a tie, right? So it's basically the 4 board members who are steering the township, to me. That's my opinion anyways. But I think everyone relies on the clerk for different things. Matt would ask the clerk probably now with his new position, probably, stuff, not freedom of information stuff, but just past stuff for different things. And I see that's an integral part.
Like a a lot of day-to-day things, about. I'm just a brand new board member, so learning the process and where things go and what I need to do for, I don't know, specific, like for a committee meeting or whatever. Just probably simple stuff, but if there's no one, I mean, if you don't have that information, or you don't know where to get it, then you just kind of spin your wheels a little.
One of the most
Right.
important things I think is reading, as Cindy did when she got appointed, she read all these different things. And then we talked about it later and she said, well, I just read that whole, I went, you don't realize as you go on in this job that we do all this, but when you come in new, there's a whole bunch of stuff that probably, even though you've had all this background, you're not
It'd be
gonna,
different, right?
It's
Municipal
just
government
different or
is
it's
than state
And if
government,
there's,
sure.
and if there's specific,
And township's different than city. I mean, that was where my learning curve was like, whoa.
and if there's specific, like, trainings that would be helpful, like Cindy and I both went to a training before Christmas, Crystal Mountain. It was great.
It was excellent.
I really learned a ton.
Right.
You know, we're only 5 people.
Only
5
one.
people are doomed to make a decision. Now, if one of those 5 people is Maverick, we've got a problem. So we have to learn to get along with what we have, with the people that we're in, that are with us, and respect their decisions. The decision might be the opposite of yours.
I don't have a problem with that, and on any of the boards that I've either been on or have chaired or been president of, I will sometimes pose the question, even if I'm opposed to it, because we need to have the discussion and the debate, and I don't have a problem with that. I also don't have a problem with, if I bring something up and it's voted down, okay.
Don't take it to heart.
And I think it's really important to have, clear communication, and adequate communication on particular issues, especially if it impacts, a lot of times there's clerk treasurer issues that have to get resolved. So I value that, but to Cindy's point, townships are designed to be inefficient. That's just their nature by statutory authority, so we don't have employees per se, we have some deputies, right? And we have a part-time parks person, and then a part-time kind of parks manager, that's it, we don't have a township manager, we don't have a operations manager, we don't have so the stuff that has to get done around here either has to be, it falls on the shoulders of the 5 people
Right.
generally, or you have to contract it out.
Mhm.
Or you have to decide we've reached a point in our growth as a township where we need to hire a person, and I think we're close to that point, but we're not quite there yet. So one of the things is, these meetings can be like having your teeth pulled without Novocaine, because they just go on and on and on and on, but it's because those discussions on the decision-making are delegated to a manager to do. They have to be done by the board, and we can't do that outside of an open meeting. So it's very, very different than, as Cindy mentioned, city government, where you've got lots of paid staff that all you're doing is bringing to the governing body, and the motions are already written up, and they're just acting on motions. They're not debating the finer points of the day or whether we should put this sign over here or over there, because those decisions have already been made by staff.
And the only time we can talk about it is here.
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. People don't understand that, and some people get frustrated that these meetings are very long.
which goes back to your first.
Including board members sometimes.
Your statement earlier about writing motions ahead of time. That can't happen because unless you wrote a motion as a board member and you were gonna introduce that at the meeting, I never know what's gonna get introduced at the meeting. Are you gonna make a motion to pass this, not pass it? You're gonna put conditions, so nobody pre-writes motions. Kind of.
They can be if it's very cut and dry, but it's difficult in
Difficult.
this setting to do that sometimes. Anyway, just for what that's worth. So yeah, I value the very clear communication and I think collaborative problem solving is huge too. So I don't believe in silos necessarily.
Now I'm gonna piggyback on you with what you said, and I think in addition, from my perspective, I always look at this as a team and would like everybody to feel that way from both a collaborative viewpoint, but also that if it's not in the silo, that we're all working together to just get the job done, whatever that might be. And from my viewpoint too, I probably look at the board position. I mean, it's a fiduciary position, obviously, but I also look at it as a customer service position with the taxpayer being question.
Sure, absolutely.
And sometimes I think in other experiences I've been involved with, government officials, I think lose that. So that's what's important to me.
Right, so with my background, having to deal with constituent concerns, and issues. Anything from, hey, can you help me get my DD 214? I don't know how to do that, to why is the state of Michigan holding my driver's license hostage? And then we find out.
There's a reason.
They usually have a reason.
It's still, yeah.
It's not because you,
That's right, so you've
dealt with that, right? And you're back and forth
dealt with that.
taxpayers
I've dealt
council.
with people
Okay.
who've been, absolutely furious over this, that, or the other thing, even when my husband David used to be chairman of the planning commission. Would get horrible phone calls at home from people screaming at me, I'm not on the planning commission, you need to take that up with Dave, don't, call the house. And scream at me at 10 o'clock at night, which did. So, anyway, yeah, I'm used to that. I think you're absolutely right. But as an elected official, yes, constituent or customer relations, is key, but so is stewardship of the taxpayer dollar. I really feel very strongly about that. Have been involved with different groups who are like, oh, it's grant money, it's free money. It's not free money. That's, state of Michigan gives you a grant, that's taxpayer dollars. And to work effectively within those budgets and that whole process.
If you were to get appointed to this position, when would you be able to start? We were thinking a Monday, like either a week from today or 2 weeks from today.
So probably realistically in March. And the
Okay.
reason for that is, Farmer Dave is having knee surgery on February 19th. So there's that, and then the following week he has like.
Sorry about
So realistically. I'm going to.
will be elsewhere.
I know, I'm just. I'm going to try to do this week and then the following. week.
Okay, that's fine.
Answers immediately.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, we need to know. I forgot to ask that question. Yeah, no, I agree. That's fine.
Maybe not.
You're gonna miss it.
I'm,
It's only a week.
And it's only a week. And if you do get appointed and you want to change this, so the answer machine rings in here. If you want to have your phone calls forwarded to your cell phone, I do here. That way I don't miss calls, and it puts a lot of people off. So I get someone that's mad, call me on the weekend, and I answer the phone, and they go, well, huh? And the first thing they go is, it's Sunday, what are you doing? I said, well, you called me, what would you like? Who is this? And pretty soon, whatever they were mad about, they were more impressed that I just answered the phone on Sunday. They tell me what the problem is, and okay, I'll call you back. But I have done that just because I don't like people leaving messages. But that's just, you don't have to do that I'm just saying as a appointed clerk. I don't think anybody else does it, do they? You don't forward no, nobody.
No, you got,
You do?
no, Parks and Recs do.
Parks and Recs do, okay.
Well, there's no phone here for township people anyway.
Not for the trustees.
Oh, supervisor,
But I
yeah, you
published my
don't.
Phone number for.
Yeah.
everybody.
You publish your phone number anyways. Yeah, everyone's.
That doesn't stop, I get phone calls.
No, you get, because our cell numbers are out there on it. Our cell numbers are on the website, actually, aren't they?
Some of them, I don't.
posted mine-
Mine is.
I posted mine on Facebook.
Yeah, so, but try to be taxpayer friendly, I guess you might as well call that. In the summer residents do call on the weekends because that's when they're here, so.
Okay.
But the office is not here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just till 9 to 2,
Mhm.
so.
Anybody have any other questions for Mrs. Snowser?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Very good,
Appreciate it.
thank you, and we're gonna make a decision
On
It's on our
Wednesday.
on Wednesday
Okay,
of this week, yep,
sounds good.
okay,
Yeah, Wednesdays are meeting.
correct.
Let's bring Brown.
Want to bring brownies on Wednesday?
Yeah, that's it.
We can do that.
Okay,
All right.
very good, thanks, Jen, very much, thanks for coming in.
Nineteen, Robert's getting a new knee.
Right or left?
Left.
My left one's bad too. How bad is his? Bone to bone?
Getting a new knee.
Not me, David.
David.
We both could. I'm supposed to have one too.
You don't get
I
it.
can go to that.
It's been 10 years.
Well, we're not meeting's not.
Townships to know.
And road commission.
He probably does. I
First one.
Do you know who he's got? You know which doctor he got?
On Wednesday?
Is it Great Lakes Orthopedic?
Yeah, it's a young guy,
Yeah.
and his name is Mark Peters.
You wanna
Dr. Mark
start showing
Peters.
I don't know,
He's having a knee.
I can do it.
Yeah.
We're having a knee replacement.
When I wrote
He's
that
got-
email, he said, oh, let's talk about
Okay.
it tonight, and I thought,
Yeah,
oh,
see,
'cause I mean, I'm.
He limps a little bit.
I don't care.
A little.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
It's out, it's blowed out, isn't it? Yeah.
rode out, yeah. So even with the brace on that they gave him.
I wonder Dave Walls had his done and Kevin Kane had his done and they were both up, gosh, in no time.
It's outpatient surgery.
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
We'll be in Traverse City that day, we can come help.
Okay, great.
What, cut?
Yeah.
Stitch? What are you gonna help cut or stitch or
No,
Cut bait.
cut bait? Yeah.
I want the Neuralink.
we'll see, but then the next week he's got like he's not supposed to drive for 8
Oh.
weeks, which I'm sure he'll lie about that.
Yeah.
My left leg, I drive with my right.
I think we're gonna do one for you.
But that is more for the painkiller
Oh,
reason,
that's
not because of
You know
the
what I mean?
way,
Put their
but
name on
yeah,
it.
tell them to take,
Yeah,
no,
I
I'll
do.
tell them, cause you just screw up. You can't do that. No.
But they don't have them doing anything for the blood.
Yeah,
Which I kind of thought they were gonna do PT.
he should be stretching his knee now, I would
I
think.
asked, I said, are they giving you anything? Are you supposed to do anything beforehand? I don't think so. All right,
Okay.
we'll see.
Recording. We're recording for the Zoom call, but nobody's typed,
He's zooming.
nobody's zooming in or,
One person here in person.
Dan,
There's a couple that may
Make
stepped out for a moment.
Okay, because your parking lot's full.
is it?
It's
Oh.
quite full.
I think there's some workers maybe over
They're
there.
probably next door, yeah.
Okay. Do you know everyone, Nola? Does everyone know Nola? No, Bob? You don't know Nola? Ed?
Brad and I know each other, I know you,
Matt?
Beaver.
Kiefer?
Matt Kiefer,
Newest board member, this,
okay.
Second newest board.
well, yeah, but you were appointed first, so you're second newest, that's right, Cindy.
Rookie though, it's been less than a year.
Well, we're all rookies, and I mean, you can be here for 5 years and still run into something that's new.
Okay,
So do you want to start with what, asking me the question, or do you want me just to take off?
we're gonna ask questions and then we'll have stuff for you to ask us. How's that? Is that
I
okay?
got the list, I prepared.
Okay. Let's start with one. Walk us, I can start that. Walk us briefly through your resume, highlighting relevant experiences and credentials.
I have 3 experiences I put down, I prepared for it. One was from Ben Boxer Ford. When I went to work there, they had a used car dealership. It was new for me to ever do that, but I do know how to manage people. So I managed the service personnel there and gave them, incentives to raise their morale, because what I seen was a beat down crew. So I raised their morale. And we increased the productivity of those cars coming through there from 100 to 300 within 3 months. So the owner was quite happy. And then I have America at Work. I worked for them for 6 years. And then we moved to an office area and they took off being bigger and nothing. So we started with a CRM program that nobody knew how to use. We're very good at getting new software and learning it. Try to figure it out, get it to work right. And when you can't get to work out, they always have a line that you can call and work through that, or sometimes you have to pay for those services to be updated. So I got that working for what we needed to do, and what that did was track quotes, track the progression of the job, and then at the end, when we were done, it would actually invoice the customer. Then you always have to remember also to go in after that, to go into QuickBooks and push it through QuickBooks too. They could enter them together and they did. I set up 2 programs for them. I did this in Houston, Texas, in the oil and gas industry. It's quite a process. To sign up for SAMS or Sigma. One is a federal and one is a state program. They're very detailed, very tedious. And if you mess up, you're just done. So I knew by air from the oil gas industry And luckily, we had another business name we could use to go in and try to get another one. Not to mess up. But we got both of those up and running and progressive bids coming through. And the owner was very happy with that. For Wilson Moore, I sat on the committee when we kept updating our software every couple of years. This was for Microsoft Navision. And I sat on the committee when they would determine trial and errors of what we needed and what they did. We'd be the test people. I did that. Make recommendations and help the program writer write the programs. I also helped write the credit card program because I understood it fully. I understood Microsoft Navision. It wasn't the easiest software I've ever used, but incredible. The credit card thing, the guy who writes the programs, he and I on Thanksgiving, because we had a deadline to have it done when we came back from Thanksgiving break, to have this up and running. We cooked turkeys together through Zoom and did our Thanksgiving that way. But we got it done. And it had a little glitches, but I knew how to make it flow, or people would just call me and say it's stuck again, and I could just push it through. And then it would work again for quite some time, but I know how to do that. So those are three things that I did there. And then at Rex Claim, when I went to work for him, he was an amazing man, the owner. He owned a janitorial service that was statewide. He had 5 different offices. But he had assets that were just disappearing, like right and left. And I don't think it was from that. I think it was from misplacing and no tracking. So I set up a tracking system to track the assets. As they were moved, they had a system to do, and that worked really well. So I tend to see things and do it. Some people like it, some don't like it. But those are my answers for that question. Any other questions for that one?
All bad.
So Nola, you didn't run for the township clerk position in the last election, but you're now applying for that. What motivated you to apply for this position, and what was the reason that you didn't run in November?
It's running for the president of the village,
Okay.
so I couldn't. I have always tracked, worked in, tried to help guide. Not always accept it well, but try to accept guidance when things weren't going right in local government. I have an interest in my local government wherever I live. And I've always been motivated, especially with the village, to guide them on certain things. But the clerk here, I see, has even a voting role, which I think is incredible. I think it's very, very nice. I would like to be able to vote on things also. I've tracked local governments. I understand the processes, and I'm not afraid to research if I don't know or ask.
Okay. What do you think of the top three to five issues facing the township, and what is your overall perception of the township?
Well, I'm gonna start with the overall perception of the township. I think you guys do a good job. I think you're pretty good at it. I like what you do. I believe in my heart that you all work for the residents. I would rather be in the township than in the village living, but I'm not, so. They don't seem to work for the residents there. I think, and this is just my opinion, we need to have a set meeting time once a month for the regular meetings. They're thrown all over the place, or different time frames, different days, and it's hard for people to track it. Different meetings at different times. I've never noticed that you have like every third Thursday at 6 o'clock.
So township board meetings are regular unless they have a special meeting.
Or
Well, then
every
you guys have a
second
lot of
Wednesday.
special meetings.
We do have.
We do have special
Yeah,
meetings
a
as
lot of special meetings.
needed, but the township regular
So
board
you do
meetings,
have one,
what's that?
a regular meeting time?
Yeah,
The second Wednesday of the month.
At 4 o'clock, can you make that later for people who actually have jobs?
It was better than 10 a.m. before I started on the board.
I know 4 o'clock is fine, and some people get done at 3, but some people don't get up to
I
5.
mean, that's the board's thing to do.
I mean, it's just something I want you to think about. You asked me what that was, so that's one of them. Get the minutes and the documentation that's supposed to be uploaded quickly for people. I don't know if it's getting done better now. I don't know, because I haven't been watching it. I don't, tell you the truth, I haven't had time. But in the past, it was very sluggish, and it wasn't getting up there sometimes until just before the meeting.
Well, what is the
Well, it's a
posting?
statutory requirement. The draft minutes actually, the draft minutes have to be available 8 business days after the meeting. And then once they're approved, you have 5 business days to get them loaded.
So if it's not the next day, but, and part of the issue is Wednesday's the board meeting. And the office hours are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so you don't have anybody working on the minutes again till, and they have 8 business
Monday.
days. They're not back in here till Monday, so it's not gonna be, at a minimum, it'd be a week to 10 days, I would guess, before it's posted, so. It's just the way it is. I mean, they're not supposed to be available the next day.
No, I know, but I'd get them in there as quickly as I could,
Oh, okay.
because I know there's a lot of people watching for them and looking for them. Huh?
We usually wait until the board approves them, and then we. post
So do
it.
you have another
No,
meeting then before you?
We
do
put
it?
draft
I'm
minutes.
posting the drafts within the 8 business days.
I know that's what the village does, and they wait till they're approved. And then,
Yeah, we
don't have
which I think is
You have a
better.
draft,
Yeah,
available online, but that's a draft. Then we have a board meeting and approve the minutes within days, they're in the newspaper, or online, all over the place.
Oh, you'll have more than one place you put them?
Oh, yeah,
they have to be published,
have to be published in a
Okay.
local newspaper.
which I don't think a village is bound by the same requirements.
We have to put a synopsis, we put a synopsis in the paper, so I don't think the village
I think
does
that's
that.
coming on quite a bit in the last few months.
Wayne's been good. I'm not done writing.
You better not be clear.
Huh? Oh, here? Sure. You can teach a new person.
I'm teasing you.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
There's a lot of things that I don't understand evidently, but minor, I think. Next question, or perception of the township? I do believe that you're working for the residents, and that's what we should be doing. I feel that there's good people on the board, and I believe that things change. We all need to be adaptable. I personally would rather live in the township.
You do,
I live in the township, but I have to abide by the village.
you
On both accounts.
do. Both towns.
Oh.
Yes, and I just think we're too small to have 2 governments. But that's my opinion.
Been there, tried that.
Huh?
Yes.
Been there, tried that.
Personally involved in it.
That's why I wanted to get on that board as president. I wanted to figure that out.
Okay. How about explain some of the strengths you feel be beneficial to your success as a township clerk and how those strengths apply to the duties and the responsibilities of the position?
I am anally organized. So I keep up on so much stuff. I'm a very good problem solver. I'm honest, trustworthy, and dependable. I've had bookkeeping for over 20 years, positions in bookkeeping with small companies or large. I've worked in oil and gas and I've worked in small offices. I know QuickBooks Online, I know QuickBooks Desktop. I used to be a pro advisor. And what I don't know, I can study and learn quickly. I constantly am researching. If I was younger, I'd be a full-time student constantly.
It's expensive nowadays.
Oh, you
Yeah.
get it written off, it's okay.
Maybe a
It's all
slush fund for that.
So, no, just get the loan and write it off.
That's true.
Follow-up question by anybody? How about discussing the familiarity and experience with Michigan election laws and procedures, if you have any?
The only experience I have is from the end of running, like getting the paperwork together and handing it in to clerk. And not having it work and having it work. I've had both realms. I understand that this last election thing was quite different and I expect that everywhere. But I'd have to work, or anybody that comes in will have to work with the county election committee group to understand it better. I feel that. I know what not to do.
Well, yeah, we all know what not to do though, but, and I didn't know there was a difference at the, but I'm not the clerk's office, and that whole scenario became interpreting what running for a township position as opposed to running for a nonpartisan position in the village.
There's all kinds of different.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't, nobody knew that here.
No, even,
I looked it up, I mean,
Yeah, you were, yeah, well, you did.
well.
I'm just saying because you were applying.
Had to do.
Yeah, well,
I looked it up too, and I questioned, I went to, Shelley, and I questioned her on it. And she had to call her supervisor to even find out a couple of questions I had. So, because there's mixed articles out there. Michigan's good for them.
So Nola, Bob mentioned in the prior interview that he had 40 to 60 hours of election training that he had to go through to get. You've got to do that to be able to run elections in Michigan once you're elected to clerk. And we've got 2 elections coming up. One's in May and one's in October. And one's for the Manistee Intermediate School District and one's for West Shore Community College. They're just simple millage renewals, but it's 2 separate elections.
So you have to do that training each election?
No, you do it and you get certified, and then you probably have to do
You
some
got so many certifications, okay.
ongoing stuff. I don't know exactly what that looks like,
Okay.
but the point is there's a lot of training, but we've got an election coming up in May, which doesn't seem like that's close, but that's pretty
It is
close.
very close.
So, I mean, is that something, if we were to appoint you to this position, that you'd be prepared to hit the ground running and really put in the time that's needed prior to that to be able to get up and running?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing I can put on my resume too. Yeah, I like to learn.
Okay.
I have certificates where most people wouldn't even think to go. But yes, I wouldn't mind doing that. I think if you're gonna do that, you need to understand it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's mandatory, so.
Well, the next question, she's probably already answered, but discuss your familiarity and experience with the following financial and bookkeeping areas: accounts payable, payroll, and general ledger. Sounds
Yeah,
to me
I
like,
have basically did that, but I've experienced in financial bookkeeping operations, including accounts payable, receivable, payroll, general ledger. I have over 20 years' experience in small office and large oil and gas companies. I bring a strong background in financial processes. I'm adaptable to new systems and new softwares. I learn them easily and well. What I don't know, I will know. However, once the initial setup, the only thing that's odd, because I've been in enough offices, is when you do payroll, you gotta get checks in right and you gotta know the printer. Otherwise, they come out all screwed up. So you'd have to get that done, but after that, it's pretty much all automated.
In your previous role where you were working in payroll, were you responsible for doing all the state and federal filings, quarterly and annual filings of the payroll?
Well, it was
tax
through
reports?
QuickBooks, so they did that, and it automatically
Okay.
went out and came in.
Okay.
well, discussing your familiarity and experience with the Opens Meeting Act and the FOIA process.
I know that well.
I know
have
that.
foiled the township and the village more than I'd like to admit. But I have questions on things and sometimes it's the only way to get information. So I have FOIA, Dave knows I FOIA'd here and I FOIA'd the, there. So I know the opposite end of it, or the opposite side of it, but I basically know what they had to do for me, so I feel comfortable there.
Okay, right now I am the FOIA director. Clerk normally had done it before, but the previous clerk had said that she wasn't willing to do it, so I took over. So my intention would be to, if whoever is the clerk after they're in the position for a while, is give them back the job, because most of the stuff goes to the clerk for finding it anyways.
And honestly, if you're organized and you have your accounting software up to date and you understand it, you know it, it should be easy to print out and do and get the information for a FOIA request.
Except most of the FOIA requests aren't for financial information.
What are they
They're
for?
for historical records,
Historical records.
planning and zoning permits, special use permits, land use permits, yada, yada,
Why
yada.
don't they just
Minutes.
call Lansing?
No, that doesn't
Those are all
work.
local records.
Where do you get those from?
Producing them
You
here.
have to find them. They're in the file cabinets or they're on the
Okay.
imaging
You
system,
gotta go look for them.
Or not exist.
or they don't exist.
So you have file cabinets here. Are they,
All over
are they,
full.
are they organized?
No,
Well,
someone,
yeah, they
Would
are.
they be organized?
yes.
And most of them
Because I'm
say,
good at
oh,
that.
I don't know.
I'm surprised you haven't taken care of that.
It's got a couple more weeks.
I really want that sincerity, organized as you are. I'm
I don't
surprised.
wanna take over somebody else's mess, cause I get accused of throwing things away.
Oh,
Maybe as a hobby in your.
That's
Fair
true.
enough.
That's true, so we won't. Okay, how about, I think she answered that, open meeting act, the Opens Meeting Act, you know, we have to follow that, obviously.
I'm the one who made it forced the village to start abiding by that, and I have studied that well. I remember sitting in one of their meetings and saying, you can't do that. It's an open meetings act. And I remember them arguing, telling me I was stupid. Well, Chris Forth stood up and said, she's not stupid, she's correct. So, but I know that the law quite well. What I don't know, I can figure it out.
How about discussing familiarity or experience with preparing agendas, taking minutes, record keeping, including document imaging?
I have experience with the Onekama Planning Commission. I was, sat on there and did their minutes. I've done it for Vail Incorporated, which was a nonprofit organization for domestic and sexual abuse. And they're usually pretty, pristine on what you have to have those. When it comes to minutes, myself, I don't know if you guys have them recorded. I like a recording of what's happened at them there, because when I'm here, for me anyways, I don't know about everybody else. But when you're there and you get distracted by something, or somebody yells out or says something, you get distracted, you lose things or you forget. And I remember at the village, I hate having on the village the whole time, but they've gotten better. Their minutes did not match their meeting. What they would say didn't match in the minutes. So I started tape recording. That's how I got tape recording everybody. And then their meetings, their minutes got corrected right. So I think it holds us accountable to have pristine, very accurate records. So that's what I like to do. So I can listen to them over and over again to make sure that I have it right. Do we have a system for that, or?
I mean, we're recording it right now, but you also have to take contemporaneous minutes because if the recording fails, then you don't have.
Oh,
the
I know
paper
that. I
record, so,
just like it
yeah.
for to make sure I didn't miss it.
Right.
I think everyone goes back on that, don't they? Have you used that in doing the minutes? Have you gone back? Yeah.
What I do is I write the minutes out the way I recall them. Then I, turn the video on. And then I walk through what I've written and sometimes add something, don't.
Yeah, just to
It's
make
like
I
a
use it more
backup.
for support.
Yeah.
And we do that.
well, it's all human, or, it's all human, because if somebody distracts you or something happens, or somebody coughs and you don't hear it.
Okay. That's true. How do you see the township clerk's role in relation to the rest of the township board?
Well, I see, as I said before, that, the clerk position is an integral part of the township board, like the cohesive glue. The responsibilities that go beyond voting, making motions and seconding motions. The clerk has the ability to express opinions and topics being discussed while being accountable for key administrative duties also. Preparing agendas, recording accurate minutes, and ensuring that they upload the things to the website. Managing financial tasks, such as tracking and paying bills, processing payroll, and overseeing office procedures. Handling phone calls and being available during the posted hours that are on the website. My organizational skills allow me to work efficiently and stay on top of responsibilities. I'm good at that. To prevent falling behind, additionally, I understand that there is a deputy clerk available to provide support when needed, ensuring continuality through vacations and occasional appointments. But I feel that if you're only here 3 days a week, you make your doctor's appointments on Thursday or Friday. So there wouldn't be many of those.
So the clerk has the, legal authority to appoint their own deputy, a deputy of their choosing.
That was on my question. to ask
We
you
don't
guys.
have a say in that. Right now, we've got a deputy who's. I think the board's happy with her, and Bob, are you happy with your deputy? So again, it would be your choice to appoint a deputy, but would you give any consideration of the person that's currently sitting in the deputy clerk position?
I'm not sure. I'd have to meet her and see her organizational skills and her ability to, because like I said, I'm very anally organized. And if organization is a tactic to keep things flowing smoothly and correctly. When there's disorganization and confusion is when things get messed up and things aren't right.
So that's a firm maybe.
That's a firm maybe, sorry. I talk a lot, too much. So 3 things. I think that's the last question, isn't it?
I think I've got a couple more.
Go ahead,
Okay.
top 3 priorities.
No, I know, we can go to that one. Top 3 priorities if you are appointed to this board.
My priorities are organizing, getting everything organized. I remember being in here a few times and couldn't find nothing. I think we need to get organized. Somebody comes in with something, we need to just be able to go get it, pull it out and get it done. The agendas and the minutes in a timely manner. And another thing that I have to learn is all of the accounting, chart of accounts that you guys have, which you guys have a lot of them. I know that beforehand.
Question, do you have a question?
Yeah, Dan's question.
Oh, Dan's question, go ahead, you can pose it.
Won't say it correctly.
Oh. Dan, go ahead, I'm putting you on the spot again. Your question.
Oh, the question I wanted all the candidates to answer is just to hear their thoughts on the relationship between governmental transparency and governmental accountability.
It's a must. It has to be a must, and Dave knows that about me, I think. You have to be very transparent. The residents have a right, and we work for them, to know everything and not to hide things. It's a must, both of those. No, not outside on the street, but in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I was gonna ask.
Oh, questions for the board? That you might have.
Well, mine was the one, could I pick my own deputy clerk, or is there a deputy clerk? I can say that by ear. I would give her a chance to meet her and learn her abilities. Can we establish a consistent date? You already answered that. That's the only 2 I have. Other than the ones I've been asking as we've been going along.
So the schedule has the board, talking about this appointment at the next meeting, which is on Wednesday. If we were to appoint you, when would you be able to start?
When would you like me to start?
Well, no, that's not the question.
No, I can start anytime. I can start the next
whenever.
day.
Okay.
But, I just, whenever you would like me to start. Except for it'll be a Thursday. Sorry.
Questions?
So I have a question. Nola, you own property here in the village for what, 7, 8 years, it looks like, based on your stuff that you submitted, run a business. You were interested in running for village president or, village council. You probably have a better feel for the village government than most people, because you seem to be fairly involved with that, but it always seems to me like there isn't the level of cooperation, collaboration between the township government and the village government as you might expect in a community this small. And I think David alluded to a process maybe 10+ years ago, right? 12 years ago, where the two governments were gonna merge. And there's a process laid out in state statute. It's very complicated, very cumbersome to do that, and it failed for a variety of reasons, didn't happen. But what would you say would be a way that you think the township government and the village government could increase collaboration for the benefit of all the citizens?
Well, even if you don't combine governments, because I know there's a person still in this community that will fight that tooth and nail. Like she did last time. She stood up at the meetings and if you even try to do that, I will be back.
There's no money to do it now anyway, so,
There is
Money
a,
that was available then.
no, that's gone.
I think openness. I think having somebody on your board come to their meetings and talk to them, hold them accountable, be polite, listen, find out what they're doing. Wayne's very open. I have friends on the board, so, Wayne seems to be very open with a lot of things. So I think doesn't he have like Tom and Chris Forth on some of your committees now to allow that?
On Parks and Rec, or invasive.
Trails
The
team.
Trails team, I'm sorry, not Parks and Rec.
Chris Forth is on planning commission.
Plan Commission.
So they've allowed that where they typically in the past would not. So that's a step forward. I believe it's that, but I think your doors are open right now with Wayne. So
Yes.
that's something that we'd have to have more conversation on.
I mean, we've started to collaborate on the improvements at the park. It's more of a financial relationship than anything, but if you had to pinpoint one area that you think is ripe for that, what would it be in your view?
That if you work together, you have abilities for more grant monies. They're looking for grant money,
Yeah,
and if you coincide together with grant money, but how do you work those out when you can't talk to each other?
but what I'm saying is there an area in particular that you think the township and the village should be talking about, a problem or an opportunity that would really benefit from the village and the township working together right now?
I think we need a downtown. I think we need sidewalks. I think we need growth here. I don't know who's fighting it so bad, but somebody is. That's what I'd like to see. They're focused on that right now. Getting the downtown breathing. But there's so much to it. They need a DVA to start up and work on that, but Roger would not allow it. But Wayne is in there now. He's more open to stuff. Could you both work on a DVA together?
Well, I mean, not if it's only in the village limits. I mean, it's, the problem is everybody thinks that township should be able to do a bunch of stuff in the village and we really
You
can't.
can't unless they approve it. I know
Well,
that.
no, we can't
No, we
legally
can't
do it.
Oh,
legally.
not even legally?
There's some things we can do, but not very much.
The DDA would be their issue. We can't, it's not us. We don't have any.
Contract you or anything?
No, there's ways we can cooperate, but we're very limited as to how the township, even
Can
though the
spend
village
funds.
is part of the township. It's very limited in what the township can do in the village limits proper for spending money. It's very limited.
I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of the challenges of having two governments.
The
in a-
DDA would only be village limits. They would never approve it going out to like Shay's old place. Because there's no business there. So you wanna capture the taxes for all that property. County's not gonna agree to that. There's no
Nothing there.
business.
Fairground.
Well, yeah, that's tax exempt. So,
Yeah, one of the challenges in a DDA, although I don't disagree that the village might benefit from that, is the taxing jurisdictions now have much more ability to opt out when it's first being created. So at some point, you're gonna lose the amount of money you can capture, and it's really gonna be just kind of the local taxes. So you've gotta really run the numbers and look at that to see if it makes sense, but I'll give you an example of what that could benefit. DDAs are eligible.
grants.
Well, for grants, but for redevelopment liquor licenses. And how many times have you heard people say, oh, we need more
We need more.
bars and more restaurants and more dining because they
Exactly
can't get a
what I was
liquor
thinking.
license? that to me, that's the single
That's
biggest.
the only way
That's the
to
big
get that.
advantage.
That's the two advantages. You're available, you have grants available and liquor
Yeah.
licenses.
I mean, there's other stuff you can do, but those are big, so I'm encouraged to hear that they're maybe thinking about that.
What about tax incentives, like for both of you, the village and the township, for businesses that wanna come in, investors? That wanna come in and build something or do something?
There's a very finite list of types of incentives you can provide. We can't just arbitrarily lower somebody's taxes.
Right.
So there are some of those that might make sense. For the village, it might make sense, I guess it would have to be down to the township for like an obsolete property rehabilitation act. But we have never.
But you can only give your own thing away. The county's not gonna give away their millage on that. They're not
Well,
gonna.
they, depending on the incentive, they can, they can't opt out of that. They can talk about it. But
Yeah,
anyway, there are some opportunities there, but it's gotta be for the right project, the right incentive, I think, to make any sense, but.
Yeah, I would love to know more about all that. I need to understand stuff to be able to think it through better.
yeah.
I don't have any more questions.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For taking the time.
Yeah, we're gonna
Appreciate
make,
your flexibility on schedule.
yes, thank you. Okay, see you guys later. So we record our meetings now on the owl, and then they go to where at,
TV2, the PEG channel. That's all.
and they put it on there, but nobody's on the owl now, right? It's open to the public, so it's like Zoom. You probably don't know everybody, right?
I know most of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know Cindy,
Glenwood,
imagine that. Matt? I know you know me. Ed, yes.
Yeah.
Bob? Okay, good enough. Go ahead, Ed, you wanna start?
Sure. So obviously we reviewed all your materials that you sent in, but could you just briefly walk us through your resume, highlighting your relevant experiences and credentials?
Sure thing. I've been employed at H&R Block since 2014. I'm a senior tax specialist there. I prepare on average 500 personal and business returns a year. So I have computer experience there and forward-facing client service experience as well.
Can you do that for reference?
Thank you.
I went back.
Okay, and then I also am a server manager at the Glenwood. I started there in 1996. I didn't work when my kids were babies, but everyone comes back. So I am there in the summer, 5 to 6 nights a week. I train all of our new staff. I do all the daily accounting, the end of day paperwork and everything like that. I also work at the Glenwood Market seasonally, where I also do the daily reports and the till and everything. And prior to that, I have a couple restaurant jobs elsewhere as well, like at the Arcadia Bluffs.
All right, thank you for that. Anybody have any follow-ups on that? So you didn't run for the clerk position in the last election, but you've submitted your application to be considered. What motivated you to apply, and can you tell us why you didn't run in November for this position?
I didn't run under the assumption that Amber was still running, and I figured she knew the job. And by running against someone who was already, in the job and knows what they're doing.
so what motivated you to apply now?
I'm interested in year-round employment. I've had to work 3 seasons together, but those seasons at the tax office at the Glenwood, I'm working 60 hours a week, and aggregate, that's about 7 months of the year, I'm working 60 hours a week. So kids here in town, so,
So if I can follow up, because you're kind of maybe getting at my next question, but because I know your hours at the Glenwood and I was not aware of your hours at H&R. So my comment, which maybe you could direct more or talk about more directly, is how does this fit in with the other positions you have?
I could go down to part-time at the Glenwood, not work the days that the office is open here, but the Glenwood hours obviously are, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. So there's still time I could work in the evening there or the days of the office and open here. And if need be, I could, if it was favorable to be here, I could leave the office or I could work part-time there as well. We do have part-time employees there as it's a seasonal employer.
Do you, that's a fault. Do you work, so H&R Block is not a year-round job kind of, or it is?
No, the office is open year round, but not everyone who works there
Oh, I
is
see.
year round. So I put in my time, more than full time, January through April, make hay while the sun shines. And then it's always worked out when my kids were little, it was ideal for me to work at the Glenwood in the evenings and not at the office during the day. So I never had to put my kids in daycare.
Terry, what would you say were the top 3 to 5 issues facing the township? And also, what are your overall perceptions of the township?
That's a good question. I don't say I have a negative perception of the township. I was born and raised here. My mom still lives here. My siblings are around, though not in the township. Yes, I am not informed enough to know if there are any negative issues with the township.
And what about, do you think the top 3 to 5 issues facing the township are?
Probably, having, housing available for families, and because that leads to, employers here not having enough employees. Probably protecting our natural resources like, the lakes, because that draws tourism here. And then I guess maintaining our roads and our, public lands.
Any other questions on that one? So you've talked about your work experience, but can you explain your strengths that you feel will be beneficial to your success at this position? And then also how those strengths apply to the statutory duties and responsibilities of the position?
Sure thing. In both of my primary jobs at the Glenwood and H&R Block, forward-facing customer service is huge. Both when you're serving at the restaurant and when you're preparing someone's personal taxes. It can be stressful, the people might have issues that you need to solve. And all the while complying with the law, but also providing service that they're happy with. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, how would those, like the forward-facing customer service, how would that apply to the duties and responsibilities that you have as township clerk?
Right, like working with any of the township residents that come in and need service from the clerk.
Do you think any of your, like your financial experience at H&R Block, how do you think that might be applicable to the clerk duties?
I have to utilize all kinds of software, both tax preparation software and that from government entities, like looking up people's property taxes on the equalization website and figuring out their property taxes from their millage rates. And I've got experience with like the SAF and the LIA websites.
So these are a little bit more specific questions to the actual kind of statutory duties of the clerk position. So talk a little bit about your familiarity or any experience that you might have with Michigan election laws and procedures.
I have in the past been a member of the League of Women Voters, and I volunteered with them, getting young people registered to vote. And then I have voted in every single election since I've been 18. I bring my kids in to vote as well, so they know how to do it. That would be the most relevant experience there.
So, we had been hopeful that there weren't going to be any elections this year, but it turns out there's going to be 2. There's going to be one in May and one in November, right, Dave?
they're both millage renewals, one's for the ISD and one's for the college. I'm not sure which is which. So May is just around the corner. And Bob, how long or what the training that you had to have to be clerk to be able to run election, how many hours did that take roughly?
Anywhere from 40 to 60.
Hours of training. And is that
It's
training,
online.
just to begin with, or do you have to do that yearly?
No, you have to do it
To begin.
to begin with, and you have to do the research all of that.
Research.
You have to log on every month or else you drop out.
So there is a lot of,
Like continuing ed, basically.
yeah, but I'm
To-
saying
to
there's a
begin
lot
with.
of stuff up here to be able to kind of be ready for, for
By
a May
May.
election or whatever. But I mean, it also kind of leads into another question, which isn't on the list, but we've asked, all the candidates. So, right now Bob's deputy is Mandy and she's been here since, how long, Bob? 5 months?
No.
Since Amber started. When was Amber appointed? March. I guess she's been here a year. almost.
April.
He's been here about
Yeah.
8-9 months.
But as whoever gets appointed to the clerk position, they by law can appoint their own deputy, and the township board doesn't have any say over that. So, would you be, inclined to kind of work with Mandy and see if that was gonna be a good fit, or would you wanna appoint just a new deputy right off the bat, or how do you see that working out?
Well, no, it would absolutely be an invaluable resource to have someone who already knows what they're doing and not. Yeah.
Okay.
That's super.
Some of the statutory duties for the clerk are, financial and bookkeeping related, which doesn't seem intuitive, but that's the way the law is written. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with accounts payable, your experience with payroll, and your experience with doing general ledger stuff?
Sure. I have done plenty of payroll, both at H&R Block because we do it year round and do accounting and payroll services.
Okay.
As well as at the Glenwood before, everything was digital, everything was paper booklets. And I was there during the day writing out everybody's check and figuring out their payroll based on the tax recording tables.
What about for payables and general ledger stuff? Have you done any of that?
Not beyond invoices for services I prepared.
Okay. How comfortable are you in like learning new software? You say, obviously you learn it for H&R Block and that's fairly complicated, but, we use software called BSNA, which is very, pervasive in the municipal space. Fairly user friendly, but it's got a few quirks. Do you feel comfortable jumping in and?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your familiarity and experience with, first of all, the Open Meetings Act as they apply to the township here, and then also Freedom of Information Act?
I don't have much experience with the Open Meetings Act, but the Freedom of Information Act, a little bit, just personal knowledge. Just like groups requesting information from the government. Guess mostly for the school board. Next to the school board here at different points and just. But always pay attention, to what was going on and things.
So we've been getting a fair number of FOIA requests for the township. It kind of comes in waves and stuff, but it's time consuming because sometimes they're requests for like historical documents, maybe they're a land use permit or a zoning permit or something. So it's not always information that's like right at the tips of your fingertips, and you have deadlines that you have to comply with. So that's one of the areas that that is kind of shuffled around. It's not one of the clerk's statutory duties, but the clerk has traditionally done that role, and I think Dave is hoping to kind of revert to that model
After a while,
after a while. Because right now Dave is the FOIA. What the clerk before Bob decided that she didn't want to do the FOIA request because it wasn't one of her duties. So that's an area that we kind of have to work on. Can you talk a little bit about any experience you have in preparing meeting agendas and taking minutes for those meetings, and then also record keeping in general, including any experience you might have with document imaging?
document imaging, like, converting from
Just paper to digital.
physical
Yeah.
to digital. We do that at H&R Block because people bring in their paper documents. And then they have to be scanned in and attached to their returns
Okay.
submitted to the IRS, yeah. And, don't know that I've ever been a secretary for meetings, but I have been treasurer of the League of Women Voters for a year. I have attended those board meetings.
What would you say you see the township clerk's role? Kind of in relation to the rest of the township board, whether it's a trustee or the supervisor or the treasurer, how do you see the clerk kind of working with them and fitting in and the role?
I would assume, I don't know too much about the day-to-day inner workings, but that the clerk is, works with the public and then relays that to the board, any, calls or visits from the public during the day would be communicated through the clerk to the board.
So one of the things that's weird about a township is, we don't really have employees except for our deputies, treasurer's deputy, clerk's deputy, and then we have somebody that, we employ for the parks in the summertime. Because we're so small, so the board ends up being, the labor, so to speak, right? And there's lots of different things that aren't statutory that we have to do, so. For example, there's committees that some of our members serve on, there's meetings that they attend, like the road commission meeting, or maybe, somebody needs to go to a county board meeting occasionally if there's an issue. There's just, who's gonna take care of arranging to have the parking lot plowed? We don't have staff to plow it, right? So do we have do we contract it out, or, so there's all that stuff that's kind of like layers of an onion that you kind of have to peel back. So we've tried to work things out so that, there's an actual workload and playing to people's strengths and stuff. So I think that's, kind of an environment, if you were to get appointed, that you'd be coming into where there's some of those things that you probably need to be looking at. Do you guys have any further follow-up or explanation on that one?
Just stuff you have to do that we can't even put down on a piece of paper right now, really, right? I mean,
Yeah, stuff comes up all the time. Like, we got somebody who's storing a boat on a public road end, so who's gonna go down and get the VIN number off of it, right? Or it just, all that stuff.
Absolutely, like at the restaurant, we don't just show up and serve tables. There's a million things behind the scenes that are going.
If you were appointed to this position, what would be your top 3 priorities?
At the beginning, just to educate myself to know what, how to do my job well, to serve, our constituents, serve our residents, make sure that they are happy and the job is done well. That's probably 2.
I'll take care of Dan's question.
Okay.
One of the members of the public wanted to ask this. So, what are your thoughts on the relationship between governmental transparency and governmental accountability?
Well, they're all hand in hand, and I think the government's job, especially at the local level, is to serve our residents. He who has nothing to hide hides nothing. So I think transparency should be there, and there's no accountability without transparency.
Can I just add a
okay, go ahead.
I mean, just because I don't know you really well, side of, the different positions you hold, are you involved like in any committees or boards or anything?
The PTO at the school.
Okay. Okay.
What questions for us? Do you have it?
So if appointed, when would start need to be? When would?
That was a question we were gonna ask you.
When would education be scheduled? What does a typical week look like here as far as hours and duties?
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 to 2,
That's when the office.
that's when the office is open. But you're saying you're at work now, you're there till,
At the 8 o'clock, I'm there 8 to 6 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturday.
So, in terms of, what was the other piece of what you asked, the educational part? or
Yeah.
whatever? That's kind of done on your own time, or well, not own time, it's, can be done anytime, it's online.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, when that can be worked in, but given that there's a May election, I think it'd have to be happening pretty quickly, but there's time to work that in. And then, what was the third? It's
when you're there.
Oh, and so I think that could be flexible depending on, Bob's appetite for staying in the position, because I think he's ready to step down.
Really short.
So based on what you said with H and R Block, when do you see your start date?
I wouldn't be able to leave them in a lurch and just up and leave partway through the season. I could probably scale back my hours closer to, middle end of March, depending on my workload, but I definitely wouldn't want to just up and leave.
Sure.
Yeah.
You did?
So realistically, not till April.
I could go down to, take a few days off a week there, probably towards the end of March. Put in time here and there to finish up the season.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
You got any more? Okay. Anything else you want to ask? Okay, well, very good.
Thanks for coming in.
I'm glad No, it's all right. We were just, Cindy said, well, maybe she's in a ditch somewhere.
I
Well, right.
was driving home.
Yeah, at least the roads aren't too bad tonight. It's
No,
supposed to be more snow Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll take snow out rather than ice.
Yeah. So should we, I guess Dave's not here. Dave, can we adjourn?
Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right, we're gonna stop.
Forgot I walked away.